Now this is the account of the deluge that over the earth swept, and how the Anunnaki escaped, and how Ziusudra in the boat survived. For days before the day of the deluge, the earth was rumbling, groan as with pain it did. For nights before the calamity struck, in the heavens Nibiru as a glowing star was seen. Then there was a darkness in daytime, and at night the moon as though by a monster was swallowed. The earth began to shake. By a net force before unknown it was agitated. In the glow of dawn, a black cloud arose from the horizon. The morning's light to darkness changed, as though by death's shadow veiled. Then the sound of a rolling thunder boomed. Lightnings in the skies lit up. "Depart! Depart!" Utu to the Anunnaki gave the signal. Crouched in the boats of heaven, the Anunnaki heavenward were lofted. In Shurubak, 18 leagues away, the bright eruptions by Ningal were seen. Button up the hatch," Ningal to Ziusudra shouted. Together the trap door that the hatch concealed they pulled down. Watertight, enclosed completely was the boat. Inside, not a ray of light penetrated. On that day, on that unforgettable day, the deluge with a roar began. In the white land, at the earth's bottom, the earth's foundations were shaking. Then, with a roar to 1,000 thunders equal, off its foundations the ice sheet slipped. By Nibiru's unseen net force, it was pulled away into the South Sea crouching. One sheet of ice into another ice sheet was smashing. The white land surface, like a broken eggshell, was crumbling. All at once a tidal wave arose. The very skies was the wall of waters reaching. A storm, its ferocity never before seen, at the earth's bottom began to howl. Its winds, the wall of water were driving. The tidal wave northward was spreading. Northward was the wall of waters onrushing. The Abzu lands it was reaching. Therefore, toward the settled lands it traveled. The Eden it overwhelmed. When the tidal wave, the wall of waters, Shurubak reached, the boat of Ziusudra, the tidal wave from its moorings lifted, tossed it about like a watery abyss. The boat it swallowed. Though completely submerged, the boat held firm. Not a drop of water into it did enter. Outside, the storm's wave the people overtook like a killing battle. No one his fellow man could see. The ground vanished. There was only water. All that once on the ground stood by the mighty waters away was swept. Before the day's end, the watery wall gathered speed. The mountains overwhelmed. In their celestial boats, the Anunnaki the earth were circling. Crowding the compartments against the outer walls, they crouched. What was happening upon the earth down below to see they strained. From the celestial boat in which she was, Ninma, like a woman in travail, cried out, "My created, like drowned dragonflies in a pond the waters fill. All life by the rolling sea wave was taken away." Thus did Ninma cry and moan. Inanna, who was with her, also cried and lamented. Everything down below, all that lived, has turned into clay. Thus did Ninma and Inanna weep. They wept and eased their feelings. In the other celestial boats, the Anunnaki, by the sight of unbridled fury, were humbled. A power greater than theirs, they with awe those days witnessed. For the fruits of the earth they hungered, for fermented elixir they thirsted. The olden days, alas, to clay have turned. So to each other the Anunnaki said. After the immense tidal wave that over the earth swept, the sluices of heaven opened. A downpour from the skies upon the earth was unleashed. For 7 days the waters from above with the waters of the great below were mingled. Then the wall of water, its limits reaching, its onslaught ceased. but the rains from the skies for 40 more days and nights continued. From their perches the Anunnaki looked down. Where there were dry lands, now was a sea of water. And where the mountains once to the heavens their peaks raised, their tops now, like islands, were in the waters. And all that on dry lands was living in the avalanche of waters perished. Then, as in the beginning, the waters to their basins were gathered. Waving back and forth, day by day the water level came lower. Then, 40 days after the deluge over the earth swept, the rains also stopped. After the 40 days, Ziusudra, the boat's hatch opened, his whereabouts to survey. A bright day it was, a gentle breeze was blowing. All alone, with no other sign of life, the boat upon a vast sea was lolling. Mankind, all living things off the earth's face are wiped out. No one except us few survived, but there was no dry land to set foot upon. So did Ziusudra to his kinfolk say as he sat down and lamented. At that time Ningal, by Enki appointed, the boat toward the twin peaks of Arata directed. A sail for her he shaped, toward the mountain of salvation he the boat guided. Impatient Ziusudra was. Birds that were on board he released. To check for dry land, for surveying vegetation, to verify he sent them. He sent forth a swallow, he sent forth a raven, both to the boat returned. He sent forth a dove, with a twig from a tree, to the boat it returned. Now Ziusudra knew that dry land from under the waters had emerged. A few more days, and the boat by rocks was arrested. The deluge is over. At the Mount of Salvation we are. So did Ningal to Ziusudra say. Opening the watertight hatch, from the boat Ziusudra emerged. The sky was clear, the sun was shining, a gentle wind was blowing. Hurriedly upon his spouse and children he to come out called. The Lord Enki let us praise, to him give thanks, to them Ziusudra said. With his sons stones he gathered, with them an altar he built. Then a fire on the altar he lit, with aromatic incense he made a fire. A ewe lamb, one without blemish, for a sacrifice he selected, and upon the altar to Enki the ewe lamb as a sacrifice he offered. At that time Enlil from his celestial boat to Enki words conveyed. Let us in whirlwinds from the celestial boats upon the peak of Arata descend. The situation to review, what to be done to determine. While the others in the celestial boats the earth to circuit continued, Enlil and Enki in whirlwinds upon the peak of Arata descended. Smiling the two brothers met, with joy their arms they locked. Then Enlil by the whips of fire and roasting meat was puzzled. What is that? To his brother he shouted. Has anyone the deluge survived? Let us go and see, meekly to him Enki responded. In their whirlwinds to the other peak of Arata they flew over. The boat of Ziusudra they saw. By the altar that he had built they landed. When Enlil the survivors saw, Ningal among them, his fury no bounds had. Every earthling had to perish. He with fury shouted. At Enki with anger he lunged. To kill his brother with his bare hands he was ready. He is no mere mortal. My son he is, Enki to Ziusudra pointing cried out. For a moment Enlil was hesitating. You broke your oath, at Enki he shouted. To a reed wall I spoke, not to Ziusudra, Enki said. Then to Enlil the dream vision related. By Ningal alerted, Ninurta and Ninima in their whirlwinds also touched down. When the accounts of events they heard, Ninurta and Ninima by the account were not angered. The survival of mankind, the will of the creator of all must be, so did Ninurta to his father say. Ninima, her necklace of crystals, a gift of Anu, touched and swore. On my oath, the annihilation of mankind shall never be repeated. Relenting Enlil by the hands of Ziusudra and Imzara his spouse, took and blessed them thus. Be fruitful and multiply, and the earth replenish. Thus were the olden times ended.